Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for being here today. We'll get started in just a minute. Let everybody join. Thanks again for being here. Okay. Well, welcome, everybody. Really appreciate you joining today's panel discussion, Carpe Diem, How to Be Intentional with Your Career. This program is brought to you by the EDPA Future Leaders, the network for young professionals in the experiential marketing industry. We are committed to supporting the future leaders through advocacy, networking, and education, like today's event. I'm your moderator, Bobby Deal with Genesis Exhibits. I've been a member of the Future Leaders and a member of the 2022 class. Our panel today, I'm joined by two recent EDPA award winners who agreed to share with us the decisions that propelled their careers forward in the customer experience industry. I'd now like to ask our panelists to turn their cameras on and introduce themselves with their name, the company, their position, the company they're with, and we'll get started right after that. James,
I'm James
take it away.
Zacharias with Brumark and Exploring Graphics, Division President.
Welcome, James. Nope. Alex, I think you're still muted.
I always start that way, Bobby. Alex Hill with Taylor Visual Impressions, and I'm Vice President of Experiential Solutions.
Awesome. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and the little tidbits and nuggets of wisdom we're going to learn today. I would like to encourage everybody who's on the call. We do have an active chat. Please drop in any questions, comments, ideas. Let's get it active. We have these two guys here. They have great wisdom, great stories. We'd love to just hear from you as well if you have anything that you'd like to hear or have any questions. And we now have our first poll question. So we are going to pop up a poll question. So sorry, everybody, you're not here just to listen. We do want some active participation. So we can go ahead and queue up that first question. It's going to appear on your screen, and we will get answers from all of you. So the first question is, what is your top professional goal? We have advance in your current role or organization, switch roles or organizations, make more connections throughout the industry, make an impact on the experiences industry, or other. So go ahead and make your selection. We'll give everybody a couple seconds here, and we will then tally up the results. Again, this is going to be an active webinar. It's not just going to be listening in. We really want your participation. We will be monitoring the chat and the questions, so feel free to drop in anything there. We do have the Q&A tab at the bottom, and we'll go ahead and share our results for our first poll. Okay, interesting. So what is your top professional goal? Advance in your current role or organization. Came in at, looks like, third. Make more connections throughout the industry. Came in second. And make an impact on the experiences industry. I'll take it to the panel real quick before we get in. Alex, James, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I love the winner, making an impact, because that covers so many bases. Yourself, your own organization, the industry at large, and looking to expand where the industry goes in the future.
Absolutely. I thought it was encouraging that nobody decided to say that they wanted to switch roles or companies. So for everybody, this is being recorded. They were anonymous, but it'll become, and all your employers will be comforted to see that nobody was planning on leaving. James, any thoughts there before we move on?
That's a very mature answer. I think that as you go through your career, those answers change. And that's actually a very mature answer for the future leaders.
I'd agree. Okay, so I want to, before we dive in a little bit more, it's always good to get history, right? It's always good to hear about how you guys started your career, where you came from, how you got to where you are today. So that is going to be our first topic, is what's been your journey. Today, we're going to start with Alex. So I'd love to start with, how did you get into the customer experiences industry? What did that look like?
It looked scary. I was in a completely different role in the printing industry. My boss had left a year before to go with Giltspur and eventually Expo Systems down in Tampa. He got promoted, and came to me and said, I'd like you to replace me in this role. And I said, I've got no design background. I don't know anything about trade shows other than attending them on occasion. And he said, don't worry, you'll be fine. But it was a risk, and it was a little scary. But that's kind of been the story of my career is taking risks, stretching, uh, and kind of growing into the job.
Hmm. And I think that's there's some key points in there, right? Being able to take risk, being risk averse versus being somebody who's willing to take on risk, it can definitely have a big impact in your career. What role did your education play in your career progression? Right. I know you mentioned you didn't have a design background when you got brought into this industry. So how did your education really play an impact into progressing?
So my education is business and marketing. So it's easy to say that those impacted my career in a significant way, but that's really not true. They were the avenue that got me a seat at the table in a number of situations, but my industry education is really what took me forward. Uh, and that industry education was given to me by a series of mentors, peers in the industry, but also being inquisitive and asking the what if questions and why not.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Being open. I think people hinder their own growth or their own development if they're not open to asking questions, if they're not open to chasing the why or chasing the what's next. So doing that is certainly pivotal. What's been the journey to your current role in your organization and in the industry, right? So I know not only do you work for your current company, but you are very involved within the EDPA and especially the foundation. So if you could speak to both, your journey in both your involvement with the EDPA and your current organization, that would be great.
So I'm now celebrating my 40th anniversary in this industry. And if you had told me that 40 years ago, I never would have believed it.
Well,
Uh,
considering you've been in this industry 40 years, you look great.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a great career. You know, um, as I say many times, about halfway through my career, I started giving back. Uh, and as I look back on that today, I wish I had started sooner. And there's no reason not to start sooner. But my career today is in large part mentoring the next generation of industry leaders within our company, Taylor. Also overseeing the industry foundation where we support education, scholarships, and uh, those in need. Uh, and uh, and then continuing to grow our company because all of us who are involved in a company, all of us who are involved in uh, 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 setting the course for the future, have an obligation to the people who depend on us. And today we have over 200 people at Taylor Visual Impressions who depend on us to make good decisions and to help their future go forward, help them grow. And it's it's a fun thing to do. It's a fun thing to be involved in, and you can imagine after 40 years, people are beginning to say, how much is left in your tank? Uh, I'm nowhere near empty. I look forward to going to work every day and look forward to opportunities like this.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being here and joining us. Really appreciate it. James, we're going to flip it over to you. Same questions. How did you get into the customer experiences industry?
Has anybody heard of a used car salesman?
Tell me you still have the white leather belt and matching shoes.
I wish I did. That was 29 years ago. Um, I was plucked out of a used car lot by Sherry Day at Radius Display Products in 1996. Fresh out of the military, had no idea what the trade show industry was, but I got a real quick lesson. Um, I spent 9 years there at Radius Display Products before I started my journey here at Brumark. Um, it's been extremely rewarding. Obviously, I started my career in sales, and just worked my way up. Obviously, and I think that there's a lot of future leaders. There's a lot of folks on this call that will attest to this. You're going to get to a point where you've outgrown either a company or a position, and that's where I was at, and that's why I made the move to Brumark. And it's been obviously a very flourishing career for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for your service. We appreciate you. Um, what role did your education play, maybe, spin off your military background, play in your career progression? How did both of those serve you well?
So I never graduated college. I went, but
It counts for something.
exactly. So I look, my dad instilled in me many years ago, as well as in the military, work hard, have dedication, do it with heart, and do it with ethics and morals. And that's really and truly where I get all of um, my success is work, drive, on the job training. Like I will never forget the first week I was at Brumark. I got thrown into surfaces at the Sands Expo on a raised floor that was 25,000 square feet. I had no idea what I was doing, but there was not a single person on that show that had any idea I didn't know what I was doing. Right?
Yeah.
You figured out common sense plays a big role in what we do. I'm not taking anything away from those that have degrees because they're imperative, and I urge my kids to go and ensure that they get their degrees. I come from the school of hard knocks. I just make it.
Yeah.
And look, street smarts serves you well.
No, absolutely. I mean, whether your background or whether somebody's background's in, a high school education or a trade, right? That's a big thing nowadays is revitalizing our trade industry or getting a formal degree or just doing the school of hard knocks. There's lessons to be learned in all of that. And it's all about how we carry ourselves, no matter what education level you have, with integrity, with authenticity, in whatever role that's right in front of you. So, kudos to you with the School of Hard Knocks. I think you have your master's by now. Are you in your doctorate maybe in the School of Hard Knocks? Do we have to like call you Dr. James now?
Hey, I'm not going to be opposed to that. I'm not opposed to that.
Sounds
Dr.
good.
Zacharias kind of has a ring to it.
Doctor, I'll remember that next week when I see you at Engage and Exhibitor Live. So what's been your journey then in your current role in your organization and in the industry? Like Alex, you've grown in your current company, but you've also been involved within the EDPA and within the industry at large. So we'd love to hear your a little bit more background on both of those.
So I started my journey in EDPA in 2004, I believe. Actually, sorry, 2002. My first EDPA was in Tucson, Arizona. And I went 2 years and I came back in 2004 and started the Texas chapter. Amanda Helgamo was our very first president when Nuvista was getting up and running and going at the time. So that was my start into EDPA and really being involved in nurturing a local chapter. Um, you know, Being at Brumark and making my way into the president's role, it's been a lot of dedication, right? It's just getting out, sales, developing relationships is key. Understanding your business, understanding your market, and having the desire to ensure that, and Alex put this very well, right? You've got hundreds of employees that depend on you daily for making right decisions and ensuring the growth of the company so that they can support their families. But with my work with my organization, I'm truly blessed because they support everything that we do from an EDPA perspective. We're very involved. You know, my operations background through the military, and honestly, it's kind of funny. I used to think of myself as a killer salesperson until I realized that I couldn't really close a deal. It was all about my clients trusting me. I had developed a
Mm.
relationship and they trusted to come to me and get the job done. My boss reminded me when he put me into operations. So it was an eye-opening experience, but I truly have flourished and really love what we do. I love what I do. Our culture is fantastic, and our work in the EDPA is paramount. All right, and leaving a viable future for those that are coming through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do want to jump. We have a couple questions going in the chat, so this will be to both of you. Chris Griffin thinks James already answered this, but I do want to read it again, give Alex a chance to chime in. So a question about those on the sales track. Back in the day, when you started in this industry, you focused on learning products and the stuff we sold. It's how we made more income. What advice would you give young professionals starting out today as to what they should focus on more early on to accelerate their success in this business? So, back in the day, it was focusing on the products, the stuff. This is the pen, this is, the banner stand. Versus nowadays, business is being done a little bit different. So, what advice would you give to the future leaders?
Yeah, I read the question in the chat. Good question, Chris. Yeah, back in the day, we'd go in and pop up a skyline or pneumatic in-stand frame, or do the magic show with an outline 8-panel unit, and people would be wowed. We made the assumption that this was going to be the answer for them, and today solutions are much more complex. I'm a big advocate on team selling. And when I'm working with one of our salespeople, oftentimes we'll come on the screen together if it's a Teams meeting and bring in a couple of SMEs and just have a conversation. The discovery call is all about finding out, what their dreams are. And our task, either on the call or immediately thereafter, is to discuss how we can help them meet those dreams and bring something to life. But it's so much more than just throwing out what you've got. It's much more collaborative today, much more impactful, and in particular since COVID, we have a lot of people on the other side of the table who haven't been doing this that long.
Oh,
The pros in the marketing suite retired or moved on to something else, and now someone has got this as a responsibility, and it's a tremendous opportunity to go in and let them know that we can take that off their hands and deliver something back. And to that end, and I've been saying this for a number of years, the R factor is the key. Reliability. If you can be consistently reliable, then you're setting yourself apart from most of the other people who are calling on them.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, anybody can do anything once, right? But it's about being there time and time again, being that reliable resource for people, or that reliable vendor, that reliable partner. It's really, I agree. It sets you apart. James, you want to respond to that, even though Chris thinks you already answered it?
No, I mean, I kind of mimic what Alex said, kind of ditto. I do believe that the collaborative sales has definitely taken off. While and Chris hit the nail on the head. We sold product back in the day, and I think we've really transitioned into solutions because ultimately And we anybody can get our product, right? Anybody can go out and find a flooring vendor,
Yeah.
right? That you can go online and there's 100 of them in your city. It's whether or not that person has the reliability, the integrity, the know-how to perform and provide information to execute your project the way it needs to be done, right? And be there before, during, and after to ensure the success of that project. So I think it's really gone from, hey, I've got this widget and it's the best widget out on the market right now, to it doesn't matter what your widget is. Here's how we can solve your problem. We'll get the widget.
Right. Right. Would you say that the sales cycle has changed? I'm speaking from my own experience, right? So going from selling a product to selling to now, it's a lot of it's relationship based, building that trust, building that relationship. Would you say that it requires a lot more patience for sales to come through? And you might call in a company or a vendor or whomever 7 times versus calling them 1 time to just get that initial sale, right? Would you say that's been a big change in the industry? And I'm playing off of Glenn's question, is what's been the biggest change in the industry that has affected your trajectory, your career trajectory? And we can answer that. Shameless plug, Glenn's spending his time on today's webinar when it is his birthday. So happy birthday, Dad. Thanks
Happy
for being
birthday.
here.
Happy birthday, buddy.
But yeah, I mean, what's been the biggest changes? That's again, going from selling that product to now selling, services or selling that trust. How has that changed your career trajectory?
I agree. The trust and relationships are key. I think the relationship has really always been there. I think the relationship is morphed and it's a different type of relationship. The biggest change that's affected me is GPS, right? I remember, and
Yeah,
Alex will remember too. And obviously, this didn't change the trajectory of my career, but
sure.
literally having to map out your trips on a Mapsco. There's probably, I would bet 5 people on this call that know what a Mapsco is. Anyway, relationships are vitally important. And
Yeah.
I go back to Alex. Relationships and trust are the two probably most important factors and the biggest changes that our industry's had over the last couple of years.
Yeah, on the sales cycle, we have an advantage in our industry on the sales cycle. This is, there's always an initial date when you're trying to get involved with someone, but in a lot of industries, there's not an end date. In our industry, there is. There's an event, there's an opening, there's an introduction, there's a trade show, and that trade show starts on a certain date. And so, we can almost always box in opportunities and know that the closer we get to that end date without a yes, the less likely we are to get that yes. So, when you look at your opportunities in that way, you can, start to introduce some realities into your, chance of getting a sale, or is it time to move on? The biggest thing that impacted my career, and really all of us, is the internet. When I first
Yeah.
started in this industry, there was no internet. Everybody worked a territory, and the territory was by zip codes or half a state. The internet came in and made North America and eventually the world our opportunity. We no longer had dedicated territories for the manufacturers that we worked with. And I don't know how many of you know Mark Bendixson from the Twin Cities, but he was an early adopter for the internet. And if you bump into him at Exhibitor Live, ask him about my reaction to the internet when he first told me about it. I thought it was a fad. I wasn't sure it would last.
Sure.
So, uh, now I try to stay surprised enough at life to learn something new when I trip over it. Good advice.
That is some good advice. All right. I want to wake up our participants here, speaking from, let's just say I put them to sleep, not you two fine gentlemen. We do have our second poll question we'd like to put up. And again, a friendly reminder to everybody, we've got a chat. Please ask questions away there. We've got the Q&A button at the bottom. But our next poll question is, what professional skills do you want to develop or improve on? So single choice: communication skills, budgeting, timeline management, personal and professional life balance, use of AI or other new tech tools, or other. We'll love to hear from you guys now. Oh, good timing. My lights turned off. So now I can do the YMCA to turn my lights back on. Please answer the question. Lights, please come on. Or not. That's fine. There we go. All right. We can end the poll as soon as it's ready, and we'll talk about the answers. But Alex and James, what professional skill would you like to develop on in your career right now?
Communication.
Nice.
That's a great one. Yep. Be a
No matter
lifelong
how good
learner.
it is, I think it always can be improved.
Yeah, absolutely. We can bring the answers up if they're ready. Okay, what professional skill? Looks like number one is use of AI or new tech tools. Interesting, 59%. Second was communication. Fourth was personal professional life balance. That just tells me your employers aren't working you hard enough. So last is time management and a little bit of other. So nice. Yeah, use of AI or other new tech tools. Any tidbits there? James, Alex, are you guys currently using or your company's using any AI or new tech tools?
I just spent a week in China with with Ross Clayson, who oversees our R&D, and every move we made was predicated on AI response. Chat GPT. Incredible. We had questions on the trade show floor, and asked AI and got good direction in all cases. So I'm not going to make the same mistake I made with internet and poo-poo it. It's absolutely incredible, but you've got to learn how to corral
Right.
and ask the right questions.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just been, gosh, that's a whole new industry, and that's a whole new job description, right? Prompt writer. I mean, companies are paying big dollars for somebody who knows how to write prompts into AI to generate the information that they need. James, anything on that? Are you guys using AI or any new tech tools or platforms?
At Brumark
Yeah.
and Exploring Graphics, no, we're not. We are using it from the marketing perspective.
Yeah.
In some instances, we're not using it to drive any agendas or any other areas within our company.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do believe that I do believe that there is some areas for which it can help. There's no doubt.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's move on to topic number two today. What has contributed to your professional success? So this is, again, open conversation. I'll ask some questions. Either one of you can jump in or piggyback off each other. I want to first start with defining success. How do you guys define success, and what does that look like? For some people, it's how much money I can make, right? For some people, it's can I sell a business? For some people, it's how many new clients can I bring in the door? How do you guys define success? And I'd like to hear both personally for you guys and maybe for your companies.
So for me, originally, it was how much revenue can I generate, what my sales are, and how much money I can make.
Yeah.
Today, it's how do I keep my people employed? How can I give them a bonus at the end of every year to help them grow and take care of their families, and what I'm leaving behind. And I hate to say legacy because I'm not going to leave a legacy, but I want to leave behind my knowledge and my skills for others to take what they've learned from me and do something much better with it than I could.
Yeah.
And do something better for our industry. So that's for me, that's where I'm at.
What because I think there's a lot of, especially in the future leaders, a lot of us are young in our careers. We might define success like how you started, right? How much revenue can I bring? How much money I could make? What piece of wisdom would you give this next generation in terms of success? Like, should they be focusing on that? Is that a good thing? Is that a healthy thing? Or is there another version of success or definition that they should prioritize?
I think every individual has their own path, right? And they're
Mm,
they're going to whatever's more important to them at that particular moment. From a career perspective, data is key, right? The
yeah.
more sales that you can generate, right? The more impact that you can have on a single company and or a separate division, the better your chances are to be recognized by that next big deal, right? That next company or that next promotion. Um, and that's not necessarily always about generating the revenue. It's
Yeah.
also about doing the right thing. It's about being a leader within your organization and working on culture. People lead by example. People follow strong personalities that provide good nuggets of information, right? And
Mm,
um, ensure that they're following the right ethic and moral standards. If an employee sees somebody doing something wrong over and over again and never disciplined for it, they're going to expect that that's okay.
right.
Especially as young future leaders, lead now and work now exactly how you would want your boss to work so that
Mm,
when you get into that position, the respect is already there. You
absolutely.
already earned it.
Absolutely. And that plays into Alex, I'll let you chime in a second, but I just want to say that that plays into our theme this year as future leaders, right? It's Carpe Diem. It's the power of now, right? You know, our generation, and I'll speak for them, they're all focused on what's next, right? How can I advance my career? How can I get this next big this paycheck, this bonus, right? What's next? I think so many times we're rushing through and we're missing the power of now. We're missing the power of being present in the moment and soaking it all in and being the best versions of ourselves in our current positions, in our current roles. And by investing in that, it'll pay out in dividends in the long run, I hope,
Mhm.
because it's proving your worth, it's proving your integrity, your more, your morality, your ethics by giving it your all now versus just chasing that next opportunity. Um,
100%.
so, Alex, I want to let you chime in. I mean, how do you define success in your career, or maybe just for you personally?
Well, I think it all comes down to growth and that growth moving towards whatever goals you have. Uh, uh, but in order to reach those goals, in order to have that growth, you've got to communicate the vision to everybody else in the boat who's rowing, as hard as they can towards that
Right.
goal. That's the only way you get there, in my opinion. The other thing that I think is important is that, and I would hope that everyone on this call has done it, but if they haven't, um, uh, you should recognize that you're your own company, you're your own brand. You should go out tomorrow and register as Alex Hill Incorporated or Bobby Deal Incorporated and start building that brand
Yeah.
because that brand has a value. Yes, you work for someone else, and we're not talking about competing with that current company, but you've got to establish who you are today, and you've got to have in your wallet, a list of who you want to be tomorrow. And if that goal, if that dream of who you want to be tomorrow isn't in writing and isn't in your wallet, then it's not real because it's going to change every time somebody new asks you about it.
Right.
So, make that commitment. If it's going to change, it changes on a piece of paper, it goes back in your wallet, and it's always there. So I think that's a very important concept to embrace.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. What have been the biggest contributors to your success? I mean, you gentlemen both have you've had various different careers. You've now gotten to the point where you are today. Again, not only in your own personal companies, but within the EDPA and your involvements there. What have been the biggest contributors to that? And we've talked a lot about, relationships and trust, but anything outside of that or anything you want to add?
The people that I associate with have been instrumental in my career. You have a choice of who you associate with, who you gravitate to. Um, I tend to gravitate towards um, a mix of people who maybe share the same vision, but my favorite people are the people who tell it like it is. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I love a person who will sit in a meeting and ask the tough questions. That's the person that provokes thought, uh, provokes growth, and challenges the status quo.
Love that. Love that. James?
Um, Mentors. And I, if I could just really say ditto to what Alex said, I would literally say ditto and just drop the mic and be done. But
There's
because
nothing wrong with that.
what he says is absolutely true, right? Who
Yeah.
you associate with is, a lot about who you are, and what you're going to learn in the industry. And the I've had been very fortunate to have multiple mentors and folks in my life and in my career that have taught me different things at different times when I needed them at that time.
Yeah.
Um, there's a few mentors that are on this call in the audience today. Your dad is one of those guys that
Mm.
you really want to associate with. I'm not going to mention
Yeah.
any other ones because they'd get a big head, but um, Alex, he's been in the industry a long time. These are all folks that are their moral and ethics compass points north,
Mm.
and they have tremendous information and um, wisdom to impart. And
Absolutely.
it doesn't matter what you're there for, right?
Right.
They're going to provide the information that you need, and if they can't, because we're not experts in everything, they know somebody who is.
Right. Right. Now, I want to spend a minute on this just because the mentorship has been a topic that we've discussed in the past. We did a webinar on it 2 years ago. It's been a topic that's been constantly brought up in our future leaders discussions and meetings. I do want to point out, I think there's a difference between formulating a formal mentorship program, right?
Mhm.
Pairing up with somebody and intentionally doing a mentorship program. I think that's great. That can work. But do you think there's also value in just having almost like a quasi mentor where it's nothing formal, but it's you've associated with them, you look up to them, you converse with them, you meet with them, but it's not a formal thing. And I think that's where it happens more organically that way. And that's, you know, how things can develop naturally and it really become a really good program. I mean,
I agree.
how did you come up or find your mentors? Was it a formal program or was it more organically and you just associated yourselves with people who you admired?
None of my mentors have been anything formal. They've
Hmm.
all been, and this for myself, and I would recommend this for everybody. You can't
Yeah.
dive into your work, keep your head down, and do, excel at what you're doing, meet all your goals, exceed all your goals, and expect to learn. You have to keep your eyes wide open, your ears wide open, and recognize when there's actually somebody in front of you that you can learn from. And I think that we miss that a lot. And we miss the ability to notice when there's someone that we can learn from.
Absolutely. I do want to keep things moving because we are very quickly running out of time, which is a good problem to have. We do have a couple questions. Chris is asking about, do you have concerns about remote work employees? Are there certain positions that you feel it's acceptable for? Or are there any positions in your company that you do not allow remote? And should a young professional be gearing up for, planning for remote work or a fully remote career path? What are your takes quickly on both of those? Alex?
Well, in the collaborative atmosphere, remote works for us.
Yep.
Uh, uh, because we're constantly bringing people into meetings depending on the subject matter or the subject. So I don't have an issue with remote, but there are certainly in a production facility, there are certainly jobs that remote doesn't work. You've
Right.
got to have people on staff. And because you've got that mix, you've got to deal with uh, sometimes jealousy or, why can't I do that? And I think it's important to answer that truthfully. In our situation, it's geography for the most part. We have
Right.
very few people remotely working in the St. Louis facility, but we have people around the country remotely working, and
Right.
it works.
Absolutely. James, I want to pose Al's question to you that's in the chat. We consider our industry the invisible industry. How do we reach out to the next generation to expose and recruit to our industry in high schools, college students, and military vets? I mean, you're involved in the EDPA Education Committee. You play a role in that. So I'd love to hear about what you guys are doing and how we as future leaders can help come alongside that and help bring out the awareness.
Engage. I
Yep.
mean, just being engaged, right? So on the education committee, we're a little bit different on the education committee. This is more towards really future workforce than
Yep.
it is
Sure.
education. But being able to reach, being at the trade shows, and
Yep.
look, we all, unless you've moved, you have some type of a connection into your local high school. Call up the principal, right? Make a connection there. And it's really engaging, making connections and asking the question. That's it. It's
Yeah.
really, and then when you have the answer you need, you're able to bring in your local chapter, your EDPA chapter, or your friends, and develop some type of a program with them. We're obviously we're reaching them via TikTok and which may or may not be around much longer, but social media in general, right?
Yep.
And really kind of trying to understand where they where they where they are and how to connect with them on that
Right.
specific level. But I will say, you mentioned this early, Bobby. Um, the trades are becoming more and more popular with
Yeah.
the next generation coming up. They don't want that formal education um, going through a 4-year school, and
Right.
that's part of our advocacy. Bringing in the Pell Grants and those types of things.
Yep.
You can utilize those for your 2-year trade school. So it's a great question. And I think it's local engagement. That
Yeah.
is a good answer for me.
Love that. Yeah, getting involved in your local EDPA chapter, reaching out to your local schools, bringing the resources that the EDPA has put together and having those conversations with your local school counselors or your local colleges, so on and so forth. So, little plug, if anybody's interested in that, just reach out. We can get you guys resources and connect you with the future workforce committee and or the education committee to get those resources to you. We are going to keep moving along because we are quickly running out of time. I do want to throw up the next poll question. Poll question number 3. What challenges do you feel are hampering your career progression? Economic and political uncertainty, lack of available opportunities and positions, and uncertain how to proceed, or other? So I'd love for you guys to be active, answer this question. Again, we have 16 attendees right now. A few people had to drop off, but really appreciate you all being here. Alex, James, any quick little, what challenges do you feel are hampering your career? Or maybe something that's hampered your career in the past?
The thing that comes to mind here is, and to a certain extent, it goes back to communication, but really, what steps are you taking to understand the goals of your present business, your present
Yeah.
company, and understanding, and making it clear that you're involved,
Right.
you're invested in this, and you want to play a role in moving forward. And if you were to shift this from your business to EDPA, understanding what the goals are for the next 2 years at EDPA and finding out how you can help reach those goals. And, by taking those steps, you're going to find yourself surrounded by a whole new generation of mentors.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we got the results up on the screen now. Political and economic uncertainty, that's certainly a big factor in today's market, today's world. Uncertain how to proceed. And I think that's interesting because, people might feel stuck, right? And I think that plays to what we were talking about is if you're feeling stuck, it's about engaging. It's about reaching out. It's about having conversations. Don't just keep your head down, right? It's about getting involved, whether that's your organization or another organization like the EDPA. I think that's really important. Hey, time to turn the lights back on. Okay. So I do want to jump into our third topic briefly before we jump to some more Q&A at the end. So what have been the curveballs or lessons learned? There's been a lot, I'm sure, over both of your careers. We've had everything from Y2K. We've had, there were certainly some impacts after 2001 and 9/11. There was the crash in 08, 09. We had COVID recently. We're also kind of, reeling back from that. But, what have been some of the biggest curveballs or lessons learned in your career?
Right now, I'm coming out of COVID. Honestly, I think one of the biggest things for me as a new executive is culture. There was the significant culture shift pre-pandemic to post-pandemic. And,
Sure.
and honestly, look, Chris asked the hard question about being remote because that is a huge, huge topic.
Yeah.
And one of his last part of his question is, should a young professional entering the business world today plan a life around entirely remote? And I would say no. A young professional should plan their career path about being in the office, and being remote is a bonus.
Yeah.
There is going to be, in my opinion, a cultural shift that will bring folks back into the office. But culture has played a huge part in our success. And I'm sure Alex would probably agree, and most executives on the call. There is a need for engagement. There's a need for that wrapping your arms around your employees, right?
Yeah.
We work hard, but we play
HR.
Not literally now. Come on, Bobby.
Right.
But look, I think that's been one of my significant challenges to overcome is understanding the younger generation.
Yeah.
Understanding what they need, what makes them tick.
Yep.
And how we can work our culture and the way we do business to help include everyone.
Yeah.
And make it a positive work environment that's productive for everybody.
Sure. Alex, how about you? What's been some of the biggest curveballs or lessons learned?
I'm going to stay on remote for just a minute because I think it's an important topic. Remote does have its benefits personally.
Sure.
Let's say you're at home, you're able to get things done, you're able to take time outs and move it. You're working well beyond 5 o'clock. So, I'm not concerned so much about how many hours you're putting in. I am concerned about how productive you are. But
Right.
my greatest concern is isolation. And the benefit of being in a collaborative live atmosphere is that you can feed off other people. You can listen to what's going well for them and what's not going well. You can interact. That's a growth opportunity. And we're missing that. So, the Future Leaders Group, EDPA, the people you meet at trade shows, the people who are within your company, you've got to forge, solid relationships with those people, and you've got to create your own little mini networks of people you talk to on a regular basis. Because, when I started, you didn't have the internet. and you didn't travel all that much. You stayed in your zip code and you depended on, let's say, suppliers coming around to tell
Right.
you what the news is in the next town, to kind of cross pollinate. Today, you've got to take that responsibility to cross pollinate and to make sure that you understand what's going on in the outside world, what's working, what the trends are. That's your responsibility as you grow. And you've got to be proactive in
Right.
bringing that information.
Absolutely. Love that. Um, we've finished our topics. I do want to jump into our Q&A at the end. This is now an opportunity. If anybody has any questions, drop them in the chat or drop them in the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We do have one that came in from Mike Falone. Alex, you've referenced your community and network. What role has the EDPA played in the success of your career, and what insight would you offer someone who is in this new community and has a new opportunity?
So my first introduction to EDPA was through Mo Bell in 1985. He had a group called Universal Exhibits out in LA, did a tremendous job on the museum side. He was a producer. And so all the producers banded together and would talk. I was on the portable side. And so, there was me, Gary Hanna, Robert Larhoven, uh, you know, uh, uh, um, uh, Graham Nelson. You know,
Yeah.
we we would get together and 5 or 6 of us would be in a room while the producers talked about, the economy and how they were going to move forward and share whatever information. There was no future leaders. We were the youngest people there by far. Today, EDPA has something for everyone.
Yeah.
Access in Palm Springs was a revelation to me because uh, it was the fewest people that I knew personally ever at a EDPA event, and that's a great thing. For the
Very,
first time in years, I had to put myself out there to introduce and find out what people were doing and why they were involved in EDPA, what their dreams were in the industry, and that's a great thing. And I'm hopeful that everybody on this call, if they weren't in Palm Springs, is making plans to attend in Florida next year because EDPA introduced me to a host of mentors and genuine friends.
absolutely. Shameless plug, the future leaders, we have a convince your boss letter to get you to access. So if you need a resource, just reach out and we will send that your way and your boss will not be able to say no. I want to jump into some of the questions that our attendees submitted when they registered. So we do have a couple ones. How do you prevent burnout when you want to progress in your career, right? Oftentimes we're thinking, here comes what's next. I got to work, prove myself, prove myself. How do you prevent burnout?
Take time for yourself. Know what you need to decompress.
Yeah. So it's setting a date with yourself, right? It's plugging that time in your calendar just to have a minute to breathe or just do what you need to do, right? Alex?
Well, I'm not going to say control my calendar. I got in trouble with but
Yeah.
but do your best to control your calendar. But the other thing is, go tackle your toughest problem.
Yeah.
Get yourself back in the mix of what you do best. So I think it's a work-life balance, no doubt about it. But you know, go tackle a tough one. See if that doesn't get you back in.
Absolutely. What how do you see the industry evolving in the next few years, right? And what skills are most valuable for the future leaders in the landscape that we're operating in? Nice little easy question.
Well, a basic thing comes to mind. If you don't know how to read a P&L or a balance sheet,
Good one.
take a course. Take
Yeah,
a course.
absolutely.
Understand how a business ticks, and be able to identify key indicators in your present business. Whether those key indicators are material costs or
Mhm.
labor costs, or top line revenue.
Right.
Understand what the key indicators are for your business today, and be able to read a P&L. And any one of your community colleges has night courses. You've got the internet, and now you've got AI.
Absolutely. James?
That was a great
Ditto,
question.
right?
Yeah,
I'm like, come on.
how do you expand upon that? I mean,
Yeah.
that's 40 years of experience right there.
Mic drop.
Exactly. No, I agree. Look, the understanding the inner workings of your business, understanding how things flow, what makes it tick, and the levers that you can pull, right?
Yeah,
Is understanding that will make you just that much better in the future.
absolutely. Absolutely. What's one thing you wish you had known before you started your career journey? If you could go back in time and tell yourself one thing day one in this industry, what would it be?
Lots of hours, long nights, and
Right.
lots of road trips.
How's your
No,
stress tolerance?
that's a
Yeah.
very interesting and that's a great question. If I had to tell myself, my future self, anything at all, it would be um, keep your head up. And
Mm,
I love tackle your biggest problem. That's outstanding. Never really thought about that, but it's keep your eyes wide open to each individual that you come in contact with.
yeah.
Right? Look, I'm not as good on the business side as Alex is, right? I'm learning more and more and more every day. I can read a P&L and a balance sheet, just FYI, but keeping your eyes wide open and getting those nuggets from every single interaction that you have, because there's a lot of them that you can learn from.
Love that. I do want to we're gonna jump into just our last couple things here. What is the biggest mistake to avoid? Alex, I'll let you start. Again, another
Not
easy
getting
question.
involved. Not getting involved.
Yeah,
Going back to the last question, the things I would have done, I would have gotten involved earlier in the industry. And specifically, I would have gotten involved in good works earlier in the
yeah,
industry. The
yeah,
people you meet in those areas are, it's the beginning of a lifelong friendship. And the bond you create goes across the industry. It's not just, sometimes it's a bond with your competitors, other times it's a bond with other parts of the industry. And all of that is educational. You're going to find yourself uh, almost by osmosis
yeah.
learning about the industry, the total industry, and that gives you a view to areas that may be of interest to you outside of what you're doing today.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's something about putting yourself out there. I was just telling my team, I heard a quote yesterday. There's no there's no growth in comfort and there's no comfort in growth. Right? So if you're not putting yourself out there, if you're not reaching, if you're not tackling your biggest problem, if you're not working on the next skill set, you're going to stay stagnant and you're not going to grow and you're not going to advance, whether that's personally or in your career or industry wide. Um, James, one last thing for you. What is the most important action our audience members should take to advance their career in our industry?
Don't be complacent.
Yeah. Yeah,
Always
absolutely.
drive, always driving forward. And whether that's understanding and learning a P&L or how to read a balance sheet or understand um, logistics, understand sales process, whatever it is, don't be complacent in where you're at or what you're doing. Always be
Absolutely.
looking ahead. Always be seeking out new information to help further your career.
Absolutely. Love it. Well, gentlemen, I can't believe it's been an hour. I want to thank you both for your time. I feel like we could have talked for another hour or 2 hours. It's been excellent. I do want to encourage you. We are having the Future Leaders at Exhibitor Live. We're having a happy hour. We'd love to have you there on site at the show floor on the 18th. So if anybody's here, we'd love for you to join as well. Maybe we can continue some of this conversation there as well. I do want to give a shout out to the live marketing team for helping us produce this event. They've been awesome in running things behind the scenes, providing us a great template and outline. So kudos to you guys. Thank you, Michelle and Brad. And call to action. We've got our links. We have my email and Mike Vallone's email. If you're interested in getting involved with the Future Leaders, you can reach out to us. We'd love to get you plugged in, whether that's with the Future Leaders or with another committee in the EDPA. We'd also love for you guys to connect with Alex and James. Their LinkedIn's will be shared with you, or you can reach out to them. And I think that's just about it. Please join the Future Leaders LinkedIn page. And thanks again, everybody, for being here. Really appreciate your time. And again, James and Alex, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bobby. Well done.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thanks, James.